Did you know that in 1994, a loaf of bread cost around 500 billion dinars in Yugoslavia? Everyone was a billionaire, but their currency was pretty much worthless. That year, the inflation peaked at 313 million% per month, making it one of the worst cases in history behind Hungary after World War II. Despite having billions of dinars in their wallets, people struggled to afford basic necessities like food and gas.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
The black market was booming, and smuggling became one of the most profitable activities during that time. So what happened? What makes the money lose its value, and why can't we just print more money to solve our problems? The answer is simple, but the solution is not. Even today, you have countries struggling with their currency being next to useless, like Argentina, South Sudan, and Syria. Things like war, political crises, and changes in the global economy are constantly having an impact on one's country and its efforts to overcome challenges. In this video, we'll dive into all of it and you'll gain an objective perspective of money that'll help you avoid losing it to inflation and maximize its true potential value. So what even is money? The definition of money says it's a medium of exchange. You trade goods or services and get paid as a result. Pretty simple, right? However, if there are no goods or services to exchange, the money is as good as the paper it's printed on. In other words, the money is useful only as long as there's something to buy. Economies run on the principle of supply and demand. They're both mandatory for the economy to function. If there's no demand, there's no need to produce goods or services. If there's no goods or services, there's no supply in case the demand is there. And if one rule is certain, the demand will always be there in one way or another. As long as the human species exists, we'll continue to run into problems, and all of them require solutions. Just take a good look at how the Game of Thrones show explained this concept in a simple yet profound way.
Have you ever been in a city under siege? Maybe this part's not in your books. See, it's not the fighting that kills most people, it's the starving. Food's worth more than gold. Noble ladies sell their diamonds for a sack of potatoes. Things get bad enough. The poor start eating each other. The thieves, they love a siege. Soon as the gates are sealed, they steal all the food. By the time it's all over, they're the richest men in town.
As you can see, the first thing that goes away during a crisis is the supply. If all the food gets eaten, the demand for it skyrockets, since nobody wants to starve. Now, the demand is huge and the supply is low. The rarity of the goods, in this case potatoes, dictates the price, and that makes them unaffordable for most people. The reason the noble ladies in the Game of Thrones trade away gold for food is the same reason we can't print money to fix the economy. It's a tool, not the end goal. You can't eat it in time of need, you only exchange it for something of value. This is why people who don't understand money get overwhelmed during periods of inflation or hyperinflation. They hold on to their money like it has its own autonomous value. Well, it's quite the opposite actually. The flow of goods and services in the market determines how much your money's worth, end of story. In simple terms, inflation means your money can't buy you the same amount of goods like it could have in the past. In even simpler terms, if you earned $100 in 2014 and wanted to spend it all on McDonald's golden delicious medium fries, you could have gotten around 62 red packs of these bad boys. However, if you kept that same $100 in your wallet and wanted to buy the same thing in 2024, you could get only 26 of those McDonald's medium fries, since the prices have gone up more than double since then. Now, normal inflation isn't bad, since it happens as a result of money circulating within the economy, and we can't stop printing it according to the market's needs. What creates a problem is when the amount of money printed doesn't follow the production of goods or services, so there's way more of it than there should be. If things blow up way out of proportion, hyperinflation comes into play. We're talking when prices go up to 50% or more on a monthly basis. That's when you know you have a case of hyperinflation on your hands. Sometimes it can get so insane that it destroys a country's currency and bankrupts a nation, so that others have to bail it out. Through loans, donations, financial programs, and basically more debt in the future. Besides the Yugoslavian example we've mentioned, Zimbabwe had an awful situation in the beginning of the 2000s, so by the end of 2009, they officially had to switch to using US dollars, as their own currency was worthless. Their story was actually not what you'd expect from a poor African country, but quite the opposite. In the 1980s, they were on a path of growth and development since years without droughts enabled a significantly larger food production alongside the rise of the tobacco industry. However, when President Robert Mugabe came to power and decided to implement changes on the entire country's agriculture, things started going downhill rapidly. This is probably how all the educated economists felt in that moment.
The party's over as of this morning. There's going to be considerable turmoil in the markets for the foreseeable future.
Under the disguise of fighting against colonialism, he evicted white landowners and gave away farms and land to whomever he liked. The criteria were to be black and loyal to him, instead of having actual skills and knowledge about agriculture. Soon, everything started to fall apart. Food production dropped almost 50%, which is unacceptable for a nation of 16 million people. What followed was the collapse of the banking sector, unemployment rates going up as high as 80%, and a huge number of citizens fleeing the country. As you can see, even good economic scenarios can be turned into chaos with just a couple decisions when your leader is both corrupt and ignorant. To this day, Zimbabwe hasn't fully recovered from that era of hyperinflation, and as of 2024, they've implemented their new currency, Zimbabwean Gold, ZWG. This example perfectly shows that despite them being notorious, international financial institutions are necessary in order to prevent individuals from ruining their economies and dooming their people to struggle in poverty for decades. We may not like them, but central banks play a crucial role in identifying causes of inflation and then applying measures to lower it. This is done by regaining control over how much money is being introduced into the economy and stabilizing its circulation. Unlike regular banks, they don't serve individuals like you or I, but instead make moves that impact the economy on a much broader level. For example, if the inflation's too high, that means they have to incentivize less spending, so the balance between goods and services and money is restored. So, how do they do this? They often do this by raising interest rates, making money more expensive to borrow, thus leading to reduced spending. But to understand how they actually work in practice, let's imagine each country is an individual looking to borrow or lend money. Just like you need money for food, rent, car payments, or vacation, a country needs funds for infrastructure, healthcare, social programs, and anything you could think of that requires paying people. In a perfect scenario, they get money through taxes and fund the police, firemen, doctors, teachers, and all of the other institutions, bodies, and experts this way. However, no country is self-sufficient in a way that they don't need anyone's help, whether that's in the form of money, physical resources, or even educated people. This is why they borrow money and invest in future projects that are supposed to bring certain benefits to them in 5, 10, or even 50 years later. But they also need it for problems in the present, like building bridges, roads, or any other pressing matter. This is where the International Monetary Fund comes into play, since countries could just avoid paying their debts and create even bigger problems on a global scale. Let's say you're the president and the president of another country calls you up to collect the $5 billion worth of debt your country owes. You say no, because now things have changed, and they have no other way to force you other than raise their army against yours. If everyone did that, the world would blow up pretty quickly. Instead, you have one financial body that's above everyone, and all the parties have agreed to subdue themselves to the upfront established rules of the game. This way, the trust is established between the countries, knowing that if one would dare to behave in a dishonest way, the others would take measures against it that would lead to massive problems for its government. Although it includes 191 countries in the present moment, the International Monetary Fund is criticized for being too inclined towards certain countries with the most political power, which is no surprise given the case that's been how the world operates since the dawn of time. However, the alternative where it doesn't exist would be way worse. At least there are limitations for the global superpowers like the USA and China, so they behave within a certain framework that helps them achieve their economic goals, while avoiding hyperinflation and irresponsible debt. Speaking of irresponsible, it also serves as a good tool for preventing politicians from making rash decisions during campaigns. If they're about to prepare for elections, they might get tempted to pull off some short-term populistic move that may seem good at first, but isn't in the long run. So what does all this mean for an average person?
if we're right, people lose homes, people lose jobs, people lose retirement savings, people lose pensions.
It means that despite your government's policies, you should always be aware of the inflation's consequences and do the best you can to minimize them in your life. People are always preaching about saving money, and that's responsible if we're talking about an emergency fund that's supposed to be your safety net in case of losing a job. But if we're talking savings like $20,000, $50,000 or more, the best way to avoid losing your money's value is to invest it and be patient when the market gets rough. Also, learn from the countries that went bankrupt and destroyed their economies, as they usually follow the same basic principle as old as time. Instead of sacrificing the present for the future, they've all sacrificed their future for immediate gains. That's the opposite of what life is about. And if you go down that road, you have almost 100% of ending up in the same place as them. Never forget that the money is a means to an end, and never the end goal. This mentality will help you avoid emotional purchases and reckless decisions, which is an epidemic in today's day and age. Well, that's it for today, dear friends. We hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know in the comments what was your favorite part, and if you have any suggestions for our next video, don't hesitate to share them as well. Thank you for watching and growing this channel. Make sure you don't miss out on more interesting stories by hitting that subscribe button. See you in the next one.